Okay, so I think I'm in. Sadly, a lot of you will probably be joining me for a few more minutes because Dave and Ian still have the trivia contest going. I was losing tonight anyway, but I wanted to get set up as soon as possible. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll just sort of babble to myself until Big Guys 45 gets here. Man, you are first. And you know what, Big Guys 45, normally when you get here, I promote your channel to everybody else who's watching, but at the moment, it's just us. So I'd like to tell you to subscribe to your channel, but I think you're already ahead of the game there. But we can still just sort of keep the ball rolling until yeah, we didn't see you at Dave's chat tonight. Dave and Ian were having a remote from Dave's house. It was 80s trivia TV shows mostly. Dave likes to do mostly TV shows, but there was some stuff on there about music. But there was some. Oh, that's right. I wanted to mention to you if you got here. Um, Dave Sundstrom's favorite band is like the Tubes, so I'm sure he would have loved that. Activision, was it? The Activision commercial you had, that was great. I think a buddy of mine had those. If I remember correctly, it was like a Nintendo knockoff or something like that. The game was like Galexia or one of those. But anyway, I'm glad you could make it. Fred Smithberg is in the house. Hi there, Thrash Pondo Pons. Hey to you. I was hoping you'd make it, by the way. Thanks for joining us. We were just chatting with Big Guys 45s. Um, correct me if I'm wrong. Dave would love his the new commercial he posted for the old 80s game console. It has the tubes in it. Anyway, Fred, thanks for joining us. Right now, we're just waiting for more people to filter in. I'm guessing a few of them are still wrapping up trivia game. Um, Big Guys 45 says, just curious, anybody here like the angry video game nerd at all? Because I personally do, lol. What a dude. Angro video game nerd. I don't know if I've been on his channel. Sounds like something I should have been, though. Perhaps I'll check it out. Does he do a lot of vintage games? Because my stuff, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the posts from my den, which is actually my garage. I have a bunch of old game systems there. Nintendo 64, an old Sega Genesis, a retro Joust uh, console. I love me my old retro video games. I even have some little teeny like handheld ones that look like small arcade games. Oh, and my wife got me a game that it's a quasi. Uh, I guess you'd call it. It's not quite full arcade size, but it's pretty darn big, and it has Centipede and Missile Command, and that's a lot of fun. Oh, Big Guys 45 says he's been active since 2005, has well over 3 million subscribers. I bet he's monetized. Fred Smithberg says, oh, I've seen a few of his vids. He goes on to say, I still have my old Radio Shack TV scoreboard Pong console. And I assume it still works. That's crazy. I remember my father and my uncles playing Pong when I was like 6 or 7. They wouldn't let me touch it. They was afraid I'd break it. I guess it was appallingly expensive. We're talking early, like mid 70s, like 74, give or take. That's crazy, crazy. Do you remember there was the tank, not Battle Zone. It was two tanks that had like a tank joust. I used to play that game for hours when I was a kid. Fred Smithberg says they really aren't worth much of anything. Very good combat. Yes, combat. I have a version of that on like one of those retro Atari game souls consoles. But I remember a arcade version from had to have been the late 70s, if not early 80s, but it was before Ataris were in every household. Big Guys 45 says, do you remember Live is Life by Opus, Thrash Ponto. Cool European pop song from 1984. Life is life. Da 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 da. I do remember it. I do remember now that you mention it. Oh, Fred Smithberg remembers it as well. Well, you know what? The three of us could probably keep the show going tonight, guys. Just the way things are going, we're all reminiscing about the same things. Um, I tend not to ask personal questions here, but I'm 55, guys. Um, are you guys approximately my age? Close. Big guys, I have a funny feeling that you're a tad younger than I am. Fred Smithberg, I've never put any thought into it, but 54, so that's pretty darn close. Um, again, Big Guys 45s, I'm guessing you're a tad younger, but you seem to know a lot of the stuff that I do, so you can't be that much younger, or you're just a huge nostalgia buff. Uh, Fred Smithberg says that was played on the 90s cable channel. Which one? Yeah, I just turned 55 back in August. Can you believe it's September? We are 3 months away from 2023. Is that not crazy? What Jammin says hello, Thrash and the Thrashers. What Jammin, welcome to the party. And here we go. If you haven't subscribed to What Jammin, please do. He has some of the best knock knock jokes in history and some other great humor as well. It's definitely worth checking out. Big S 45 says I'm also on TikTok, by the way. If anybody cares, my account is SparksDude82. Thank you. So I'm assuming you're 40. uh Oh, Fred Smithberg says it was called the 90s, I think. Sounds about right. Sounds about right. Big Guys 45 says, I'm actually only 22. Crazy. Believe it or not, I'm still living at home with my parents. I have high functioning autism and minor conductive hearing loss. Oh, very sorry for your hearing loss. I'll try to speak up if you can't hear me. Um, but wow, 22 and you have that level of understanding of nostalgia, I am very, very impressed. Um, seriously, I work with a lot of people who are about your age, and they don't even understand that the '80s existed, let alone have such a high functioning knowledge. So, kudos. Keith E in the house. How do you call a chicken looking at lettuce? Chicken sees a salad, or what? Siri is killing me. Keith, don't worry, I'll give you another chance. Welcome to the party. We'll try it again. Keith has been submitting lots of dad jokes lately, and I'm sure the one he has there is very good. Lance Chafin says, "How you thrash, Lance?" Thank you so much, guy. I was hoping you could make it tonight. Um, how'd you do with the trivia, by the way? I'm guessing people are filtering in as they leave Dave's channel. Let's just see what else we got here. A lot of people saying hello, having fellowship, as I always say. We do the same thing on Dave's channel. I know, love it. Life Inside Ending. Steve is in the house. Hello, Steve. Good to see you. Thank you. Welcome to the party. Big S45 says I need to give actor Alex Frost a hug. Is Alex Frost having a bad day? Well, we wish him our best. Danny Staten says, greetings. That's his traditional way of saying it. Greetings from South Carolina. Dan has something new, by the way. It's sort of like his old show on steroids. It's called Show and Grow, where in addition to showing some great old vintage music and TV shows, retro commercials, which I find to be a blast, he also promotes other people's channels by posting videos of theirs on his. I've compared it to Night Flight before, but it really is. If any of you remember the old Night Flight, that's kind of what he has going on. Subscribe to Danny's channel and check out his new shows, please. Tom Lermy in the house. How you thrash? Hello, everyone. Tom, hello to you as well. Let's just see what else we got here. Big S 45 says Mr. Frost is like Miles Teller, LOL. Miles Teller, why is that not clicking? Get back to me, or at least give me another clue. Keith, he says, "What do you call a chicken looking at lettuce?" Chicken sees a salad. Hopefully, Siri works with me. Oh, chicken Caesar salad. I get you. Chicken Caesar salad. We have no king but Caesar. Keith, thank you for your submission. Good effort. Superplex in the house. Hey, Superplex. Hi, T Pawns. Nice wig. Nice wig. I'm gonna make a real long story short. Emily Miller was saying that she was Heather Thomas's body double as a joke on Dave's channel, and to keep the joke going, I said so was I. And Superplex is fixated on that. I was not really Heather Thomas's body double. I was Heather Locklear's body double. Fred Silver. Oh, yes, there we go. Fred Smithberg, going back to John Saxon, R.I.P. What other sci-fi fantasy movie shows was he in? He was the robot, uh, SMDM. He was in Battle Beyond the Stars. Yes, he was. He played the evil dictator, and he was on a movie called Planet Earth. I think. Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned it. Um, it was the Dylan Hunt saga. There were actually three attempts. Long story short, the Dylan Hunt storyline was sort of like The Fugitive, set in a post-apocalyptic Earth. He was an astronaut from our time who was cryogenically frozen in an experiment and revived afterwards, and then goes on a quest to try to pull the world back together in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. Alex Cord was in the first 2-hour pilot, but then they tried again a few years later. This was all done by Gene Roddenberry, where John Saxon, he actually they made like a handful of episodes and they weren't picked up, so these episodes were edited into a couple made for TV movies. Um, Planet Earth was one, and I actually mentioned one of these on a show I did ages ago. Earth 2, I think it was called, but he was also in that. He actually did a lot of sci-fi. Great man, taken way too young. Um, John Arico was his real name, by the way, and it was, well, there's some shenanigans about his passing that his son actually asked me about after his father died. I didn't have the information to share, but either way, he was taken from us too young. Oh, I also just recently told a story about the uh, uh, John Saxon saga. Supposedly, when Gene Roddenberry was trying to get the show picked up permanently, he jokingly said to the TV executives, "Oh, and the main character is going to have a companion who's a talking frog," which was a joke reference to A Boy and His Dog. And they thought it was serious, and they pulled the plug right there, which just shows there's a time and place for sarcasm. James Dye in the house says, "Hello, Gun Thrash, and everyone else. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us." Dave Clooney says, "We are here. Yes, we are. We are one under the stars." Mr. Led says, "We are here, Thrash. Yes, we are one under the stars." At the risk of being redundant, Big S45 says, "Random question, but does anybody here like SpongeBob SquarePants at all? Huge fan of the particular cartoon show." I thought that was a very, very funny show, and I actually met Tom Kenny years ago, who is an incredibly approachable person. But yes, that show was very funny. Nick Momoas in the house says Mike Taylor was Rooster in Top Gun Maverick. I still haven't seen the Top Gun Maverick. I never get to the theaters anymore, not since the whole shutdown. But Mr. Momoas, and I try mispronouncing your name. Thank you very, very much. Oh, and it looks like I was so busy pontificating, I got way behind. So I'm gonna do that thing where I race down and try to catch back up. Let's see. Oh wow, I went way too far. Okay, let's see. Here we go. So a lot of people having fellowship. Big S45 says Miles Teller is gorgeous. LOL. I'll take your word for it. Emily Miller says, "Hey y'all, can't stay long, but I'm here." Emily, any time you spend with us is more than appreciated. Thank you so much for joining us, Miss. Sarita Abney, hey Thrash. Hey to you, Sarita. Thank you so much for joining us. Gary Carpenter, hello there, Thrash Pondo. Hello to you too. Oh, and by the way, I hope you've all liked and subscribed. I'm sure you have, but the broken record bit. Let's see. A lot of people having fellowship. That's actually half the fun. Gary Carpenter says Sir Lancelot hi. Yes, you caught my Excalibur reference. Excellent. Or do we have someone in the house called Sir Lancelot? Either way, welcome to the show, Gary Carpenter, and thank you so much for joining us as always. Um, Tom the Hungry Jerk says met Saxon at a toy show in San Jose 10 years ago. I've heard he was a very nice guy. Never met him personally, but I heard he was a very nice guy. John Doe says hello, Thresh. John, thank you so much for joining the party, and hello to you too. Cindy D says hello, Zuberplex. So what am I, chopped liver? I'm kidding. Mike and Kathy says hello, everyone. Hello to you too, Mike and Kathy. Thank you so much for joining us. Fred Smithberg says yes. That's right. Gene Roddenberry forgot about that. Somewhere on YouTube, he actually tells that story. I've actually seen him. I haven't just read it. I've actually seen him tell the story, and he gets kind of embarrassed. Like, I should have known better, but uh, Mr. Lynn says, big guy, I got into SB because my daughter loved it. Uh, SpongeBob. I loved Plankton. Plankton was one of my favorite characters. He really was. Let's just see. I think I'm almost caught up there. Oh, someone just said hello to Daryl Johnson. I think I may have skipped right over him. But Daryl, if you're in the house, thank you so much for joining us. Emily Miller says, wasn't Saxon in an episode of the Wonder Woman as well? That sounds right. I can't place it, but that's he did a lot of sci-fi. Fred Smithberg said, "Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street." Saxon was in. He certainly was. He was also. I don't know how many of you out there were fans of The Strain, but when The Strain was being conceptualized, it borrowed from this old John Saxon film about soldiers in Vietnam who become infected with a virus and become cannibals. And it's shockingly similar to The Strain. If you see it, you'll know exactly what I mean. Um, and let's just see, skipping down. I saw some new people in the chat. I just want to say, make sure I say hello, everyone. Lee Mateus, Thrash. Lee Mateus, how you doing, man? For those of you out there who are into vintage music, Big Guys 45, I'm talking to you specifically. But for those of you who like particularly cutting edge and hip hop music, you got to check out Lee Mateus. He does some great retro breakdowns of some really amazing music. You have to check out his channel. Tracy Meyer says, "Hi guys, I'm stopping in just to say hi, but I really need to go to sleep." Tracy, take care. It was so nice you did join us, even just to say hi. Your presence is always appreciated. You take care. Lee Mateus says Hitchcock himself. Mr. Mateus loves to refer to me as Hitchcock. Maybe someday I'll make a movie almost as good as his, or at least I should start opening with my show with "Good evening." That'd be a start. Big Guys 45s. I'm currently at 723. LOL. Yes, he just passed 700, and we couldn't be prouder. Let's see. Fred Smithberg says, "Same with The Simpsons. After the first, maybe sixth season, it just got less funny. Probably had to get more edgy to compete with Beavis and Butt and South Park, etc. Isn't that always the case? Shows try to reinvent themselves and then destroy themselves." Let's just see. A lot of people saying goodnight to Tracy, and good thing it was so nice of her to join us. Let's just see. Uh, uh, oh, yeah. Gary Carpenter, I'm here, Thrash Pondo. Gary, we never lost faith and we knew you'd make it. Thank you very much for joining us. City D said, "I said hi to you, Thrash. You missed your not cropped liver." I figured as much. I figured as much. I just wanted to be a wise guy. It's all I'm good at to keep in practice. Tom Laramie in the house. Tom, welcome to the show. He says to Big Guys 45, not really. I'm sure in context that made perfect sense. But Tom, again, thank you so much. John Doe says disco, disco duck. Um, Keithy says maybe only two thumbs up like so far, or am I doing something wrong? I actually can't tell, but please feel free to like and subscribe and share. And if any of you haven't subscribed, please do get your friends to subscribe. I'm this close to 200. You know how it goes. Music Girl 67. Good evening, Thrash. Loved your live with ENC the other night. I left you a comment after the live finished about the show Dads you mentioned. Hopefully you saw it. I did get a comment about that. Did I not comment back? I thought I did. But yeah, I love that show, and in fact, I remember saying I was surprised anyone else had even heard of it. So I'll double check because I might have been somebody else who I commented back to. But thank you very much for joining us. Please subscribe, and I'm glad somebody else there remembers a show that I thought up until recently only I remembered. Oh, Mr. Jenny Stanton is providing links to other channels. That's always very nice of him. Oh, Emily Miller says, "Okay, guys, sorry I can't stay. 6 a.m. comes early around here. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for joining us. You take care, and we'll see you very, 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 very soon." Oh, Music Girl says, "I see 14 likes. Well, that's better than two. And if I can press your name down to just Music Girl, would that be okay? I like to give people abbreviations, like the unapologetic movie geek I call Tug, because it doesn't roll off the tongue." The unapologetic movie geek. Zuplex says, "I remember about John Saxon was that he was in The Bold Ones, where he played a lawyer in Enter the Dragon." Yes, he was in Enter the Dragon. He was great in Enter the Dragon. Gary Carpenter says Hitchcock was a weirdo. He certainly was. Oh, Nicholas Mamona says, "Do you mean My Two Dads?" No, no. Back in, I want to say, 87, there was a very short-lived show. I think it only lasted about 6, 7 episodes. It was called Dads. It was sort of like Kate and Allie, only instead of two divorced women who move in together with their children, it's two divorced fathers who move in with their children. Same number of children, three. Two boys and a girl in this case, and hilarity ensues, and they make sort of a gestalt family, and it was very funny. Barry Boswick plays one of the fathers, asshole from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it didn't last very long. But one of the episodes I saw, the daughter wants to put on a family dinner, and instead of cooking the Cornish game hens for an hour at 4:10, she cooks them for 4 hours at 1:10. So they're basically raw. And so she has to start from scratch, and all the men in the house are like ravenous and start to turn on each other. And it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen because they just sort of slowly go insane. It's very funny. But sadly, the show wasn't given a chance to catch on. Oh, Tom Army says, "Thrash, I was responding to Big Guys 45 question about SpongeBob." Like I say, I'm sure in context it would have made much more sense. John Doe says, "What was a show you liked but no one else did?" Funny you mentioned that. We were actually just in the live chat. There was a very short-lived back in the 80s. There was a very short-lived show. It was one of those anthology horror shows. It was hosted by James Colburn, and it was called Dark Room. And it kind of reminded me of the Twilight Zone or some of those old vintage horror comic books like Twisted Tales I used to read when I was a kid. And I loved it. And I couldn't get anyone else I knew to get into it. And I tried so hard. And I thought it was a great show. And of course, it was canceled. But that's one show that I could never figure out why nobody else liked. Oh, Music Girl says Music Girl is fine. Thank you, Music Girl. Um, Cindy D says the way he treated Tippy Hedren was creepy. That is a terrible, terrible story. And the fact that the Melanie Griffith story where as a present to her, he gives her a Barbie doll in a coffin and says it's your mom. The man was a nutcase. I mean, I'm not knocking the fact was a nutcase. Um, I'd like to think Lee Mateus was referring more to my cinematic enlightenment as opposed to my personal habits. I tend not to be threatening towards women. Ask my wife. She's here somewhere, but she'd kill me if I tried to put her on camera. But I do agree with you, Cindy, that that was a terrible, terrible story. Mike and Kathy says, "Love the Birds, one of the best horror films to date." And it's amazing how many other horror films at least borrowed from it. It really is. I saw a retrospect on that, and just the way they break it down, like for the first 40 minutes of the movie, it's almost like a rom com. It's like you almost forget that you're watching a horror movie. It's it was very, very well done. Nick Mamos says, "I remember the dark room." There you see. No, did you like it though? That's the question. So he says, "Is your move with Justin Bateman a great show?" That's ring a bell. Is that the one where he plays like a Ferris Bueller character? He plays like the precocious kid who's always scheming. Is that one? Suplex says that sounds like Buffalo Bill, which NBC brass Brandon Tartikoff regretted canceling. I remember Buffalo Bill. Um, so he says he made her film with real birds. Yes, I do remember that as well. Oh, and Steve Levin said that the birds has no music. You are correct. Well, yeah, except for the children singing. And one of the Cartwright girls is in that too. Was it Angela, I believe? I believe it was Angela, who of course can sing. She was in The Sound of Music, if I remember correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong on any of those points. Mikey Cathy says, I don't consider the birds horror. You could make a valid case, more thriller. But it was one of the first of those nature fighting back movies. That became very, very popular in the 70s. But you can certainly make a case that it's not. Fred Smithberg says, "I love the James Colburn '67 movie comedy. William Daniels in it. Not too many people know about it. Definitely different kind of movie. I can't place the movie. I'm racking my brains. I'll get back to you. I'm sure I know something of it. Oh, Tom the Hungry Jerk says, met Tippy. She lives in the Bay Area too. Crow Minion in the house. Crow Minion, hey, how we doing? Thanks for joining us. Mel Brooks lampooned that in High Anxiety, didn't he? Except the birds were pooping on him. Yes, and they were. Yes, it was the scene in the kids park. Yes. Um, and Mr. Nicholas says, yes, I liked the dark room. Thank you. I feel vindicated now. James Dye says Mel Brooks did a bird spoof scene in High Anxiety. Yes, he sure did. Tom Murray says, as for the show Dads, it had Boone from Animal House, I think. I just looked it up on YouTube. It was 2013. There's the show I remember was from 87. Perhaps it was posted in 2013, and it might have had Boone. That sounds about right. Fred Smithberg says the analyst 1967, James Colburn, William Daniels in it. Not too many people know about it. Definitely a different kind of movie. Haven't seen it, but sounds interesting. The Life Inside ending says sci-fi, maybe for the birds. It could be. Science may have made them go batty batty. Sublik says yes. Angela was in Sound of Music. You see, he was teasing me the other day because I said Veronica when I met Angela. For some reason, I always get the two girls mixed up, and I have no idea why. Because I used to know the first one from Lost in Space, which was one of my favorite shows as a kid. Let's just see what else we got going here. Mr. Lynn says, I was disappointed in the ending of The Birds. Completely different from the book. Completely different from the book. So I can certainly see that. Groomington says, hey, Thrash, good to be here. Good to have you here. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Let's see. A lot of people saying hello to everybody. A lot of people having fellowship. Oh, the Life and Setting says, hey, Thrash, what's in the jug? Yukon Jack. No, I'm sorry. This is actually store brand apple cider. which is actually surprisingly good. I even had to water it down a little bit because it's a little too sweet. You drink really sugary drinks, it just makes you thirstier. So I put some water in it, but it's actually quite refreshing. And I got a throat thing going on too. Just a little dryness, hopefully. Change of season up here. Everyone in Cape gets these like sinus things going on. Music Girl says there are 3 episodes of Dads available to view here on YouTube. There are 3 now? I only saw 2. I'll have to check out the third. Luplik says the birds got angry because that lady brought that bird cage from the island. That might be an oversimplification. Chrominian says the hills are alive with the sound of Griswold. Fred Smithberg says one of the Sound of the Music girls was in Logan's Run TV show. One of the kids was in the Spider-Man TV show. That sounds right. That does sound right. John Doe says Birds is more of a drama than horror or sci-fi. True, but again, I always lump it in together with those sort of nature fighting back. But again, there's really no wrong answer. I mean, you could even say it's a dark comedy. Mike and Kathy said, "Hit the like button." Yes, please do. You forget I'm the one who tries to push Night of the Comet as a Christmas movie, and I have made a valid case for that. So actually, you know what? Those are, and I'm sure most of you here on tonight have seen Night of the Comet. How many of you people would agree it's a Christmas movie, or at least be willing to discuss the matter? Let's just see here. Mr. Lynn says, I must read the book, then thrash. Who wrote it? I can't remember off the top of my life. I'd probably remember the name if I. All I can think of is William Christopher, but that's wrong. Logan's Run was creepy. It certainly was. Tom Marie says, update on Dads. It was 1986. I was close. I said 87. And there are some episodes on YouTube. Yes. According to Music Girl, there were 3. I've found 2, but apparently there's 3. Life in Settings says, I watched The Birds Tonight. True story. It's on YouTube, 22 minutes fan edit. Of course, that's an atrocity, but I watched the whole thing. Yeah, supposedly The Birds is loosely based on an actual event. Some birds ate some shellfish that were infected by a bacteria that made them go bonkers. But yes, loosely based on a true story. You can also watch the complete series of It's Your Move here on YouTube. I did not know that. I did not know that. James Dice says Good Nature Fighting Back movie is Frogs with Ray Milland. Probably the best one, although the scene where the girl can't get away from the snapping turtle, which moves at about 2 feet an hour, that kind of I had to get a giggle at that. But yes, the Ray Milland movie Frogs is actually surprisingly scary. Fred Smithberg says can't wait until October when TMC starts playing classic horror movie, monster alien movies. They used to play a lot more, but I remember AMC used to play tons of them. But yes, I love all the old vintage horror movies. A lot of them are here on YouTube. Let's just see. Tom Laramie says, yes, Spider Man was in The Sound of Music, Nicholas Hammond. Thank you. I was going to say, that did sound right. Caribbean said The Birds. Oh, yes, The Birds, the Hitchcock horror movie. Which, strangely, we got on this topic because someone referred to me as Hitchcock. But it's funny where our little conversations take us. A lot of people. Fred Smithberg said none of the Lepus. My favorite, the Giant Rabbit movies. Yes, that's actually playing in the backdrop in the first installment of oh, for crying out loud! I can't of a movie. I'll get back to you, but it's playing in the background. Red pill, blue pill. Miss Lynn says Jane's Frogs was on Svengoolie last week. Ooh. Tom Linkedrick says, "I'm gonna check out Dad's too." It is. It's a pretty good show. Check it out. Oh, Crow Minion says the Birds novel was written by Daft Demia. I think that's how you spell it. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. But again, I said William Christopher, so I was way off. BK on the air in the house. Hey, Thrash, trying to put together a BK, Pat McCormick, Sunstrom, T Pawns, and Retro Serial cast one night. Stand by for action. I am so in. I am so in. I don't know if this helps you or not, but I can definitely make it on Monday or Thursday nights. Other nights, I would have to know a little in advance and do some juggling around. But I would love to be BK on the air does some absolutely amazing podcast. It's pop culture stuff, old retro movies, TV, pop culture stuff. He plays some of the best retro commercials out there. He had Pat McCormick on as a guest. If you haven't subscribed to BK on the air, please do so. He's got some great stuff, and you shan't be disappointed. And I can't wait to be a guest on your channel. Uh, John Doe says, Maland. Did I not say Maland? I may have mispronounced it. As I say, I'm a little stuffy, and I have a moderate speech impediment, which I try to overcome, which is why I talk like I'm on the radio. But every now and then it pops up. I still can't say Christmas tree like that. The second Jurassic Park with the baby dinosaur and the little girl was scary. Oh yeah, yeah, with the T Rex is teaching its young how to hunt. Yes, I remember that. And oh, Mr. Lynn says, "Are you sure she was more of a mystery writer?" No. Again, I'm not not too familiar with her other writings. James Dice says, "I'm going to have to bail. 5 a.m. comes early. Good night, all." James, thanks so much for joining us. It was nice just to have you show up. So thank you. But again, looking forward to seeing you very soon. Oh, BK on there says, "Always appreciate the shout outs, T." Well, I appreciate your great product. Um, Why, wow, I actually got caught up. The Matrix. You see, this is what happens when you're trying to read. Do you know that I had 870 plus comments with my last live chat? And now a lot of them were just people saying hello to each other, but I'm sifting through those, answering questions, raising new ones, and that's why sometimes I'm like, I can't think of things like the Matrix. So bear with me if I seem like I'm like in early onset dementia. And for some reason, I keep getting these pop-ups over the live chats, and I'm afraid I'm going to accidentally log out. But let's see here. A lot of people saying good night to James. Yes, good night, James. And Danny Staten has given us a link to BK on the air. And not one person has gotten back to me about the possibility of Night of the Comet being a holiday movie. Hmm. See if I come up with fanciful topics for you guys again. Cindy just says, "You miss a lot when you scroll too fast." Yes, you do. That's why I try to very quickly sort of browse as I go. I do occasionally miss some, but it's like, it's like here you see, good night, James, good night, see you, James. Belated. I kind of like scroll through those. The weird thing is when I get too far behind, it jump cuts. So like all of a sudden an entire page goes missing, and that's why you'll see me scrolling. I'll be trying to get back to where it left off. If I ever do miss anybody's comments, please forgive me. It's inadvertent. And post them again. John Collins is great for that. Post them again, and I'll try to catch him on the second round. Um, in fact, I think I just lost somebody's. Oh, Gary Carpenter says Heather was in the original Captain America movie. Which Heather? Let's just see. Mikey Kelly says maybe because it's not. Oh, out of the comment. I mean, come on, think about it. It takes place during Christmas. It opens up with them waiting for a comet to go across the sky. Um, a lot of it takes place in a mall, which in the 80s was Christmas to us all. There's the obligatory gift giving. They give each other the gift of firearms. And the guy who saves the day comes dressed in a spoiler alert in a Santa suit. I think that's some pretty convincing stuff. But okay, I'll give you another topic. Return of the Living Dead, one of my favorite zombie movies. Was Ernie a former Nazi? That one's a little easier to sell, I'm sure. I get some real good stuff for that. Anyway, uh, Criminian says, Mr. Lid, yes, I just looked it up to make sure. I think we're referring to Who Wrote the Birds. I read it, but I can't remember what it was. But it's back there. It's back there. Mr. Lid says, haven't seen Night in 30 years. I remember two hot girls. That's about it. Yes. That's that's the main plot point, yes. Here's one for you. The one of them runs around half the movie in a cheerleader outfit. Apparently when Joss Whedon was conceptualizing Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he used her as a template, only instead of fighting zombies in Buffy, she fought vampires. But the sort of cheerleader warrior concept came from Night of the Comet. Let's just see. What Jamin says, I think Night of the Comet is a good movie. Laugh out loud. So he's saying ironically. Tom Hunky says War of the Gargantuas, which is actually a sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World, which was actually intended to be. Are you sitting down? The original, for those of you who pay attention to kaiju movies, King Kong versus Godzilla wasn't supposed to be King Kong versus Godzilla. It was supposed to be King Kong versus Frankenstein. Well, so Brian envisioned a movie where a Frankenstein, artificially made bigger, big enough to fight King Kong, would be released, and King Kong and Frankenstein would fight each other. It was never made, but when Toho Studios bought the rights to King Kong so they could make King Kong versus Godzilla, they said, hey, we inadvertently now have the rights to make a Frankenstein versus movie as well. And they made it versus a Baragon or some big dinosaur thingy. But boy, did they get their money's worth out of that franchise, huh? John Doe says, I misspelled Milan. When I said the man with X-ray eyes. Love the man with X-ray eyes, and spelling doesn't count on this channel. If pronunciation doesn't count, spelling doesn't count. Fred Smithberg says, anybody remember Alec Guinness as Jacob Marley in Scrooge? Who brings Scrooge to hell? That was something. I don't recall that one. Mike and Kathy says, what about Die Hard? Yes, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Without a doubt, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Zublik says, some people think Heather Menzies played the oldest daughter in The Sound of Music, but that was Charmin Carr. Thank you. Nicholas Mamona says, one weird one was the Gremlins released in summer, but it took place during Christmas. It was delayed for some reason. It was supposed to be a Christmas blockbuster, but it was delayed, and that's why. Gary Carpenter says Frogs was on MeTV last week. Yes, Finguli, I believe someone mentioned earlier, but thank you, appreciate the shout out. John Doe says I think Night of the Comet was a great Christmas movie. Thank you. So opinion is divided. Some say yes, some say no, and I'll live with that. Blake says Charmin Carr, damn you, autocorrect. I know I hate autocorrect. Gary Carpenter says John, so was Batman Returns. Life Inside Editing says, I don't know, he just jumped off the page. When you miss my comments, my feelings are hurt, but I realize that I shouldn't take it so personally. At least that's what my therapist says. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. I'll try to catch you in the rebound. Fred Smithberg says, message retracted, and a message retracted to you as well. Nicholas Mamona says, I saw it die hard during the summer, but again, it took place during the Christmas time. Gary Carpenter says there's the Birds Lens, and it's in a catalog. Fred Smithberg says favorite and only zombie movie for me, Dawn of the Dead '78. I watched it at the drive-in when I was 10 years old. Oh, I've never seen one in a drive-in. Oh, that must have been fun. Griminian said, "Love that old candlestick phone on the screen behind you." Reminds me of the one from Andy's desk at the courthouse. Yes, this is just a backdrop. My wife got this for me for filming purposes. Tom Emery says Heather Menzies was married to Rob Urich, Dan Tana on Vegas, and Spencer Fryer. Yes, he was Spencer Fryer. The unapologetic geek in the house, and he even says Tug is here. Yes, we were just talking about you in absentia, and I'm so glad you're here. For those of you who haven't subscribed to the unapologetic geek, please do. He has some of the best retro film reviews available. He loves thoroughly. You can tell by the passion he puts into his projects, vintage sci-fi and horror movies, and they are absolutely amazing. And he has a new service he's been providing lately, where he has something called a public domain theater, where he takes an old movie in the public domain. So far, they've been horror movies, and presents them in a watch through. And you can actually much like this, only there'd be a movie playing, and while the movie is playing, he posts his comments, he reads other people's comments, and it's similar to, well, I don't want to give the game away, but if you've ever seen a movie where it's been watched along in a humorous way, you know exactly what we're talking about. So please give the unapologetic geek, or Tug as we call him here, a chance. And Mr. Lynn says Dave already did a whole show on Die Hard. He certainly did. Oh, Tom the Hungry Jerk says I met Heather Menzies back in 1977. Wasn't she? Wasn't she in that Australian film Walkabout? There's a bell ringing in the back of my head. I haven't seen that movie in years, but I believe she was in Walkabout. Uh, and yes, Chrominian says Die Hard is definitely a Christmas movie. Uh, so yes. Superlick says Zombie by Lucio Fulci was the best zombie movie I ever saw. I love Zombie. I have it somewhere in my collection. But I love the Fulci horror classics. They're absolutely amazing. Let's see. Mr. Lynn says, "Knock it over again, Thrash," to show it. Yeah, I've done that. I leaned back once, and this whole thing went burp, and the girls were watching TV or on their phones on the couch and back, and they were hideously embarrassed, and I told them it would never happen again. So unfortunately, I can't do it again, Mr. Led, but hilarity would ensue. Fred Smithberg says, "How many times did everyone see Star Wars in the theaters when it first came out in '77? Mine was 7 times, drive-in mostly. I think I saw it in the drive-in once, but the first theatrical release, I saw it 5 times. But no, because there was a drive-in on Cape Cod. There were like 3 drive-ins on Cape Cod at the time. So I think I saw it once in a drive-in, but 5 for the original screening. John Doe says there was a TV show with George C. Scott played a governor, but I forgot the name of the show. I don't recall that show. Cindy D says the channel Pizza Fix show many old public domain movies. Interesting. Tug says thanks for the love, Thresh. Thank you as well. Sublik says I saw Star Wars in '77 twice. Twice is respectable. Music Girl says I just subbed to the Apologetic Geek. Love old horror and thriller films. You will love his channel, Music Girl. Oh, and check out some of my old posts. When this channel started, it was a nostalgia channel for vintage sci-fi and horror films and books. And before I got involved in my comedy angle and some of the other stuff, you'll find a lot of reviews of old vintage sci-fi and horror literature and film. So please check those out too. And everyone else is welcome to check out as well. Zublik says, no, that was Jenny Agutter in Walkabout. Okay, thank you. I was having one of those wires crossed where the names were backwards. And Zuplex, I can always count on you. Mike and Kelly says, waited around the block for Star Wars. When my cousin took me to see Star Wars We had this. In fact, I think we ended up seeing a show later. Like we were supposed to see the 1 o'clock, and we saw the 4 o'clock. But yeah, my cousin took me there for the first time. Let's just see. Criminal says John Doe. There was one called Mr. President where George C. Scott played the Prez later in the 80s, I think. Sounds about right. Let's just see. Tom Lucker Jerk says we only have 3 drive-ins in Northern California. Really? We had 3 on Cape Cod back in the day. We don't have any now. They closed the last one, I believe, year or two. They brought a couple of them back during COVID, but they were temporary. Keith E says I worked like a dog from 79 to 2020, and there is so much stuff I missed. It's unbelievable. Well, we'll try to make as much of it up to you as possible, Keith E. And keep those dad jokes coming. I'll try to put them in my next compilation. Tug says I was -1 years old, but my mother did see Star Wars in '78 while pregnant with me, so I guess I sort of saw the theaters. I forget how much older than I am than a lot of you folks. Yeah. Music Girl says, "Thanks for the info, Thrash. I definitely will check out your older videos for sure. Thank you. I appreciate it." SJ Manola is in the house. So glad you could make it. Glad to be back. I was 8 back in '77. I remember shooting my imaginary laser gun upon exiting the theater. Yeah, who didn't do that? And again, SJ Manola, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, sorry, that's the best I can do. Criminal says I was 7 when the original Star Wars came out. Went to see it 8 times in the theater. Let's see, '77. I turned 10. I turned 10. I was born in '67. Oh, Tug says I have 3 classic horror reviews lined up. I'm doing 2 public domain theaters, Nosferatu and Night of the Living Dead, in October. Yes, he's planning those 2, and I can't wait. Ziplik says I remember hearing about Star Wars from the article in Time magazine, which called it the best movie in '77. Wow. Oh, and Jenny Staten has posted a link to uh, Tug's channel. Cindy D says message retracted, and a message retracted to you as well. Mike and Kathy says I was 18. Mike talking. Mike was 18 in '77. Mr. Lynn says in '77 I was 21. Those were the days. Wow, some of the people watching me were actually older than me. Wow, but I'll never tell. What Jamin says, I was 5. I barely remember Star Wars, but it was in the drive-in. Cindy says, I was 10 too, Thrash. I was born in '67. Yeah, me too. Remember, just turned 55. John Doe says, everybody forgets the show from Misfits of Science on NBC right after Knight Rider. Oh, I remember it. It was on against something else I used to watch. I can't remember what, but I do remember Misfits of Science. Suplex says, I was 19 in '77, but I turned 20 later on. Tom says, I was in 7th grade in '77. I think I was in 4th. That sounds about right. Tug says, I remember seeing Star Trek 2 and 3 as a double feature at the drive-in. Wow. That would be fun. Fred Smithberg says, I turned 20 later too. Small world. S.J. Manola says, I saw Orca in the theater, an often forgotten film. Orca's one of those movies where a lot of people don't remember it, but the people who do remember it are just like, I mean, it was pretty intense. I mean, well, so was Jaws, but I mean, I remember watching it and thinking that Orca, and I want to give the game away for those of you who haven't seen it, but Orca actually took some chances that Jaws didn't even take. Let's see. Zublik says we are getting old, Fred. Yes, we all are. Act accordingly. Cindy D said, "Anybody remember the powers of Matthew Starr? I love that show. Louis Gossett Jr. was in it. That show was great. It was very, very short lived, but I loved the premise, and I thought Louis Gossett Jr. was great in it. Oh, and wasn't there was an actor in it. He was in Wrath of Khan. He played one of Khan's henchmen. He was that blonde dude. He was in some other really important sci-fi movie, and I can't place it, but he played the villain in The Powers of Matthew Starr, at least in the pilot. Let's just see what else we got going on here. Gary Carpenter says, "Super like speak for yourself." um, Crumbinian says, "I remember Orca, but I don't know if I ever saw it. It's good if you haven't checked it out." A lot of people call it a Jaws ripoff, but it's way more in depth than that. Mike Kelly says, "Waited around the block for The Exorcist." Also, I didn't see The Exorcist until the age of the VCR. I was in high school, and a bunch of us we were putting together something for the school newspaper or the yearbook. We had like this committee meeting right down the road from where I live now, with me and a bunch of the other kids from my school for our senior class. And rather than do work, we ended up watching The Exorcist, and that was the first time I saw it. Great movie, but again, I didn't see it till it was till it was on video. Let's just see. Other says, "I remember Orca, Richard Harris, Jaws ripoff." We were just talking about that, a Jaws ripoff. I remember the scene where the mother orca was giving birth on the boat, which consequently led to its death. Pretty graphic. That was the chances that I was referring to. That yes, it was. That was pretty intense. Uh, Fred Smithberg says he was in the Phoenix 1982. Very good. How did you get all that from my nonsensical rantings? Fred, you are you are a prime candidate for the Thrash Pondopon's Legion of Merit. If you can unravel my logic and give me the right answer, I tippeth my hatteth. Gary Carpenter says King Kong versus Godzilla was my first monster movie. What a way to start! Great, great monster movie. I read The Exorcist. No desire to see the film. I can see that it was banned by many organizations. Let's just see. Mikey says, "Message not retracted. Siri is just waiting for me to say something." That's so sad. I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh. Oh, I'm sorry, Keith. Uh, John Doe says Orca was a Jaws ripoff. Tentacles was a ripoff. Oh, Tentacles was a shameless ripoff. But the weird thing was that actually ripped off both. That ripped off Orca and Jaws. Um, Mike and Kathy says I was drunk when I saw Night of the Living Dead. It's the best way to watch it. um, Cindy says I wasn't allowed to see The Exorcist at all as a child. Fred Smithberg says Judson Scott in Star Trek 2, locking phasers on target. Very good. Tug said Judson Scott was the actor you're looking for. Again, how you guys can like piece together what I'm talking about and giving the right answer. I gotta. There you go. Oh, I just jumped. Gary Cameron says, "Oh, Cindy, I'm a Pisces. I thought you were talking about the Italian horror film Pieces." Uh, Nicholas Mamona says Bo Derek was in Orca 2. I think it was her first film. Could have been. Could have been. Um, yes, Tug. Dang it, Fred beat me to it. No, but we're all very impressed by the effort. Music Girl says, "Hey, Cindy, do you remember the powers of Matthew Starr?" I do remember the Powers of Matthew Star, sorry, but I've only seen the pilot episode here on YouTube. It has me intrigued to buy the DVD set. I love searching for rare shows from the 60s to the 90s. Fred Smithberg said, "You said henchman from Star Trek 2, so it was easy." I said henchman from Star Trek 2, and you said that was easy. There were people who would laugh in my face if I said, the henchman from Star Trek 2. They'd be like, "No, Bob, you don't know the henchman from Star Trek 2." Only us, we happy few, can take something like that and make sense out of it. And again, pat yourself on the back. All Wheels Down says message retracted, and a message retracted to you too, All Wheels Down. Let's just see. Uh, yes, Gary Carpenter. Wasn't he in a short-lived show called Phoenix? Yes, he was. Ziplik says King Kong versus Godzilla was laughably ridiculous. Cheap actors in rubber suits, special effects. It was, I know, but it was great. I absolutely, absolutely love that movie. Mr. Lynn says, "Well, good night, all. I have to go to bed. I'm not far behind you, but I have to keep it going for at least a little while longer." Mike and Kathy says, "How bad was the first Star Trek movie?" It was a misfire. I mean, I saw where they were trying to go. It suffered from a lot of rewrites, and they were very concerned about dailies, and uh, it worked itself into a frenzy, and that's what happened. When you make a movie by committee, you get films like Star Trek: The Motion Picture. They certainly had potential there, but and again, a lot of it was actually ripped off from the premise to a TV show reboot, which I think was their biggest mistake. I mean, the pieces were there that just never really gelled, and well, but yes, it was pretty bad. Nicholas Boa says, "Not a big horror fan. I liked Friday the 13th, the series with Robbie, though." Friday the 13th, the series, that was one of those where it was about the haunted pawn shop. Yes, they actually do an episode of Rick and Morty on that. Um, yeah, I like the TV series. Fred Smithberg says, "Were there any 3D movies in the 70s or 80s anyone watched that were good?" No, I watched some, but none of them were particularly good, I'm afraid. Well, because it was all about the gimmick. It wasn't about making like good drama or entertainment. It was just like, woo, woo. So no, none were good. Let's just see. Mike and Kelly says Bambi versus Godzilla. Love that to death. I saw it on Night Flight years ago, and it has stayed with me all these many, many years. Crab Minion says, "God." Well, that's my list of good and bad Star Trek films. It's called Pros and Con. Uh, let's just see. I think I've missed a few, so I'm just going to try to skim backwards. Nomad was V'ger, yes. uh, Zublik says Precis Kambata made the movie worthwhile. We lost her way, way too young. She's in another movie that I actually review on this channel, Phoenix the Warrior, or it's known in my review, Warriors of the Wasteland. Um, she was amazing. She's also in what was that movie? With Rutger Hauer as the bad guy. Nighthawks. Nighthawks was with Sylvester Stallone and Don't to Billy D. Williams. My dad took me to see that when I was a kid. Love that movie. Um, yes, Perseus Kabata was great, and it was very sad that we lost her. Fred Smithberg says, "I remember Parasite 3D 1982 with Demi Moore. I don't remember the movie at all, though. Wasn't there one with Molly Ringwald? The Destruction of Jared Sin. It was a sci-fi movie. I was just saw something on it here on YouTube, but I believe it was 3D, but it's like ringing a bell in my mind. In any event, Oh, Nick Moa says I like Nighthawks too. Tug says that's because Wrath of Khan is the best Star Trek movie. It's not debatable. It is the best. Well, the joke is that odd number one, odd number Star Trek movies aren't good. Even number one Star Trek movies are good. I loved six myself, actually. Christopher Plummer as a Shakespeare uh, screaming Klingon warrior. Oh my gosh, look who's here! My flock is everywhere. Hi, y'all. Hi, Dan. My flock is everywhere. She has some really funny posts. I've been trying to join her, but my schedule's been so erratic that I haven't been able to. But she has some great live chats out there and has some very, very funny posts as well. Very good karma stuff, by the way. By the way, there were some very dangerous fires in her part of California. My flock, how are you doing, by the way? Are the fires still a threat to you right now? Are you holding up okay? Please let us know. Um, Fred Smithberg says Star Trek 6 was good. Yeah. Christopher Plummer, great Klingon. He certainly was. Mike and Kelly says, what about Voyage Home? So funny. Tug says, you're not experienced Shakespearean. Oh, you've not experienced Shakespeare until you've seen it in its original Klingon. Actually, my favorite line is the one that they lifted right out of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Don't wait for the translation. Answer the question. John Doe says, I have all the Godzilla, even Godzilla versus the Wolfman. Really? Mothra, Gamera, King Kong movies, and others. Great stuff. Great stuff. I've heard of Godzilla versus the Wolfman. I've never actually seen it. Tom Laramie says, here's some useless information. Billy D. Williams' middle name is December. I never knew that. So thank you. I appreciate that. My Flock is Everywhere says, I'm okay. I've not seen the news today, but I lost power last night. Not sure why. Well, good luck. We'll be praying for you. Nicholas Moore says, yeah, I like Trek 4, but Khan was always my favorite. Let's just see. Well, at least I've caught up. um, so have you all, by the way, subscribed? Have you all hit like? And will you all share this to at least one other person and get them to like and subscribe? If I did that, do you know that I'm at 185 subscribers? I shot up like 16, 17 subscribers the last after party. I did lose one. I was at 186 for a while. One person checked out. Could have been an older one. Didn't necessarily have to be one of the new ones. But again, I just love to say over 200. So do what we can. My vlogs everywhere says based pawns. I'm hoping based means good because she uses that a lot. As you are based. Of course, they call me antacid because I'm always about the base. Cribbington says Flesh and Blood is another fun Rutger Hauer flick set in the 16th century. You have a combo of armor and swords and early firearms. I own that, by the way. I actually bought it thinking it was a different movie, believe it or not. Oh, Tom Drake says, met Linda Miller from King Kong Escapes last year. Wow, that's crazy. Supposedly, Robert Dunham, the guy who was the leader of Zootopia in Godzilla versus Megalon, supposedly they had an affair at one point. But I can neither confirm nor deny. But you could have if you would ask her. Tug says, I need sleep. Good night, all. Tug, thanks for joining us. Take care. Fred Smithrick says, Tom Laramie, that was the most unexpected and best picture piece of news. Cool. I'm going to go back and see what he's. I'm guessing that he met Linda Miller. Maybe that's it. Not sure, but in any event, thanks for the good news. Let's just see what else we got here. Rutger Hauer was in Blade Runner, and one, maybe two episodes of Smallville. I don't remember him in Smallville, but he was amazing, amazing in Blade Runner. But he's gone now, like tears in the rain. Ultrablick says yes, T-Pawns. I'll try to get my family interested. Thank you so much. Cindy D says you will get there. Thank you. I really appreciate that. John Doe says, ain't Linda Miller the daughter of Jackie Gleason? Oh, that would be a great trivia question if she was. I had never heard that. Quite possibly. I don't know. Sadly, I don't know much about Linda Miller, but that'd be a great. That's a great. If anyone knows, Fred, maybe. Oh, John Doe says Godzilla vs. the Wolfman is on YouTube. I will have to check it out. Fred Smithberg said any unknown foreign sci-fi movie that are good Russian or Korean or etc. There's one I've always been wanting to watch, but I've only been able to see it in blurbs, and that's Stalker, about the group of Russians that go through a post-apocalyptic wasteland. The coolest sci-fi foreign film that I've seen in years is probably Le Dernier Combat with Jean Reno. It's a French post-apocalyptic sci film. It's all shot in black and white, and it's all about guys trying to like survive in a wasteland. And the weird thing is, for some reason, never fully revealed, whatever the disaster was, which destroyed the Earth, has robbed people of their ability of speech. So there's only two spoken words in the entire movie. Everything is through innuendo and inflection and just having to read what's going on in the drama. So that yes, that's a good one. Let's just see what else we get going on down here. Oh, Tom Memory says here another useful piece of information. Batmobile from 1966 Bat movies TV series only went 40 miles an hour. They undercranked the film to make it faster. I believe that. Let's see some retracted messages. Let's just see. So Blake says silent movie then. Oh no, there's sound. There's just no dialogue. Uh, Cindy D says Rutger Hauer was an interesting actor. He certainly was. Mike Getty says loved Blade Runner 2049. It was pretty good. I liked it myself actually. So let's just see where we're about a quarter past the hour. I want to. I do have to take my granddaughter to school tomorrow, so I can't stay too much later. I will stay on for a few more minutes, but we should probably think about wrapping the show up. But so any questions out there? Keith E, I'm sure you're still there. If you want to take one more crack at a dad joke or a criticism of something I've said, now's your chance. Criminal said another fun Howard movie was A Breed Apart with Kathleen Turner and Powers Booth, 84, 85. It's ringing a bell, but I can't place it. Gary Carpenter says, Tom, I sat in one of the original Batmobiles years ago. Really? That is like so cool. Um, oh, I got pictures to prove it. We believe you. We believe you. What Jamin says, one of my favorite Rutger Hauer movies is The Hitcher. That movie freaked me out when I was a kid. That's your Hitchcock level stuff. He was so great in that. The scene where C. Thomas Howell is driving and the little girl's waving at him, and then he looks over and Rutger Hauer's in the seat next to her going, "Mm," and he can't get the drivers to realize that how much trouble they're in. It just that's an amazing movie. It's very, very sad, and parts of it are very difficult to watch, but that movie is just a psychological. Uh, Gary Carpenter says, Danny, I've got several boxes full of tapes and DVDs. So do I. Something in the hundreds. Tom Lungy Drake says, I sat in the Batmobile at a convention 7 years ago. That's excellent. That is like just, I am like green with envy. That'd be so cool just to sit in one. Now, to drive it is almost too much to wish for, but to just sit in one. Crummington said, Donald Pleasance is a rich collector of rare bird eggs, and he sends Booth to collect a rare eagle egg. Howard is semi-crazy Vietnam vet living in nature in the area who stops him. Okay, that makes sense. Soldier of Orange was the one I was trying to think of. It's a Dutch film. It's all about this group of friends in pre-war Holland, and they get caught up in the war when Holland is invaded, and some actually fight for the Germans. But it's all about their exploits, and it's loosely based on the story of this one Dutch hero during the war. So check out Soldier of Orange if you can check it out. Matt Cathy says I still have a VCR. I have two or three that still function. They are probably their last legs. Chromium Soldier of Orange is great. I knew at least one of you out there would have seen it. Oh, in addition to sci-fi and horror, I love old war films. I'm always saying the reason I call my den the bridge big for two reasons. One, in an old sci-fi, they're always referring to the bridge. Go to the bridge, take him to the bridge. War movies. Any war movie with the word bridge in the title is a good one. So it's a reference to war movies and old sci-fi. Keithy says, all good here. You did fine. Well, thank you very much, Keith. Thank you very much, Keithy. Let's see. Tiddy says I have a VCR DVD combo. I have a couple of those actually too. Chrominian says Bridge on the River Kwai. Great movie. Also Bridge at Remagen, A Bridge Too Far, The Bridge, Bridges of Toko Ri. There's a whole bunch of them. Nick Momoa says Patton and the Dirty Dozen are my favorites. Love both of those movies. Both fantastic movies. SJ Manola says Uncommon Valor and War Games are some of my faves. You know, it's so funny. There's a guy. His name is Spooky Creepy J, and he was doing this old '90s. He does retrospects of old like anthology horror TV shows, and one of them, the premise is the guy's a soldier who's lamenting the death of his child, and I go, "Oh my God, it's Uncommon Valor." It's just the premise, but my first thought was Uncommon Valor, and I haven't thought of Uncommon Valor for years. So it's funny that you mentioned Uncommon Valor. But yeah, those are excellent movies. John Doe says, "Got to go myself. Looking forward to the next live stream. Looking forward to having you. Probably next Thursday, maybe a little something before that. I'd like to actually get a couple of actual posts. I have a couple projects I've been like working on. It's just that we're still in the postseason here on Cape Cod, so I've been a little busy. But I'll try to cover some more bases as soon as humanly possible. And Zuplex says the bridges of Madison County that does not count as a war film. I'm very sorry. Crumington says Dirty Dozen is fantastic. Yes, it sure is. The Longest Day. There's a scene in The Longest Day where one of the paratroopers accidentally gets blown into a convent, and when the nuns come out, they start to scream, and he goes, "Shh," and then runs into the woods. That gentleman had actually retired to Cape Cod. He was living the next town over from me when he died. A lot of people I know who were big World War II buffs that actually met him because it's all based on actual firsthand accounts from all sides. Zublik says Full Metal Jacket was the best. It's a great movie. Tom Lumley says Thrash, Cruminian is right. Jackie Gleason's daughter is Linda Miller. I never knew that. Tom, thank you for and Cruminian, thank you for that. Thank you for pointing that out to me. That's a great, great trivia question. Cruminian says Uncommon Valor. Was that the one with Gene Hackman? Yes, where he puts together a team to try to rescue prisoners of war still being held in Vietnam, which was a huge issue in the 1980s. Even before Rambo picked up the cause, we were all concerned about Vietnamese veterans being held as prisoners of war and used as slave labor. And They go in to try to rescue some of them, one of whom is Gene Hackman's son. Uh, oh, my Flex everywhere says, Pawns, hurry up and be free, okay? LOL. Yes, I'm just gonna scroll through the rest of these comments. Hamburger Hill was great. The book says, but it has bridges in the title. Yes, but it's not a war film. City says, my God, Times Post, still waiting. Thrash. My good Times Post. Yes, that's one of the things I'm discuss in my next post is all the projects I've promised but haven't had a chance to do. Sublick says, who the hell was Linda Miller? She was in King Kong Escapes, and I think she was in Mothra. She was an American actress who made some films in Japan, is best known for her Japanese films. And Gary Carpenter says Mike and Kathy Gene is gone now, and Gene is now in his 90s. Bite my tongue. Oh, and my flock is everywhere says, "LOL puns. We need to do a show together." We certainly do. We certainly do. Um, I still I sent you a text a couple days ago. If you get my text, we'll touch base and we'll set out sometime very, 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 very soon. Um, in any event, I should probably call it now. I want to thank all you folks for joining me. Thank you for taking time to, with leaving Dave's show and coming to see me. Fresh Miss Berg says, "Have a great evening, rest of the week, Thrash Pondo and everyone, and thank you guys all for joining us. Think of some more topics, and to my new subscribers, if you think of a cool post, let me know. I like to do posts on suggestions from new subscribers, as Cindy Diaz pointed out, Good Times being one of them. Tom Duncan Drake says King Kong Escapes is great. It certainly was. I saw it on TV when I was a kid. I fell in love with it. You know, King Kong versus a robot. How can you not have fun? Oh, anyway, all you guys are saying thank you very much. I'm glad you guys had a good time. I had a blast. I love doing these. I really, really do. I could talk about like old vintage nostalgia stuff all day. Um, I would normally stay on a little bit later, but again, I got to take my granddaughter to school tomorrow morning. Nick Mortis, thank you very much. So, thank you guys all very, very, very much, and we'll see you all very, 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 very soon. In my next post, I'll probably have a more solid date as to when the date and time of my next live chat, and I'll let you all know immediately. Anyway, guys, take care. Be good, be safe, be careful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all again very, 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 very soon. Peace.